The brass plate on Mailbox 6C says J. Keller. I'm still touching it when Marisol comes around the front desk and says, "Mrs. Bell-Keller, can you wait 1 second?" She has a sheet of paper held flat against her navy cardigan. When she reaches me, she turns it over. Ethan's signature is at the bottom. Above it, under Resident Directory and Mailbox Amendment, someone has typed Judith Keller as the primary Keller resident in 6C. My status reads temporarily residing elsewhere. "Your husband filed it," Marisol says quietly. "He said you approved." The date beside his signature is September 14th, our anniversary. I look through the lobby's glass doors at my own reflection, still in my work coat, carrying the wine Ethan asked me to pick up for the dinner his mother is cooking in my kitchen. On September 14th, he told me a supplier emergency had kept him across town until 10. "May I keep this?" "It's your copy." The elevator dings behind me. What I don't understand yet is why my husband needed me to be living somewhere else. I fold the form once and slide it into my purse. "Thank you," I say. Marisol's eyebrows pinch together. "Do you want me to call upstairs?" "No, they know I'm coming." The elevator smells like lemon cleaner and somebody's takeout. On the mirrored wall, my face looks composed in the way faces sometimes do right before the rest of you catches up. I press 6. Ethan has texted 4 times. "Mom timed the roast. Everything okay? We're waiting on you. Nora?" I type in the elevator and watch the message turn blue. When the doors open, I can hear Judith laughing inside 6C. Our front door is unlocked. That bothers me almost as much as the mailbox. I step in and find my mother-in-law standing at the kitchen island in my blue apron, carving a roast with the knife I once drove 3 hours to buy from a retiring restaurant chef. She's wearing lipstick the color of brick, and one of Ethan's old jazz records is playing. "There she is," Judith says, "the woman who keeps her own dinner, waiting." I had to stop downstairs. Ethan comes out of the hallway carrying a bottle opener. He kisses the air near my cheek, taking the wine from me before I've put down my purse. "Bad traffic?" "No." His eyes stay on mine for half a beat too long. Then he studies the label. "This is the Oregon one Mom likes. You specified." Judith smiles as if I have passed a small test. "You remember." I hang my coat in the hall closet. A tan wool coat I don't recognize is taking up 3 hangers. Below it sit 2 pairs of Judith's shoes, toes pointed outward. A cardboard box marked Hall Closet has been wedged behind the vacuum. On the console table, my shallow ceramic bowl is gone. It's the one where Ethan and I drop our keys, glazed dark green with a crack along the rim. In its place is a silver dish shaped like a leaf. "Where's the green bowl?" I ask. Judith glances over. "I moved it. The silver is brighter." "Moved it where?" "Oh, Nora, it's a bowl. Sit down before the food gets cold." Ethan gives me the look he uses when he wants me to recognize a trap and avoid stepping into it. Usually it means his mother has arrived already irritated by parking or politics or the price of olive oil. Tonight, it means something else. I set my purse on the floor beside my chair and sit. Judith has used the linen napkins. The cream ones, which need to be washed separately because a hotel supplier once sent me 6 dozen samples, and I made the mistake of choosing the most impractical set. She has folded them into stiff fans. "You didn't have to do all this," I say. "It's a family dinner." "What are we celebrating?" Ethan pours the wine. Judith answers. "A fresh arrangement." He spills a little against the side of my glass. I watch him wipe it with his thumb. Judith serves the roast, pink in the center, then spoonfuls of potatoes and glazed carrots. She has made too much for 3 people. There are 5 place settings, though only 3 chairs have been pulled out. "Are we expecting someone?" "No," Ethan says quickly. "Mom just set the whole table." "It looks more generous," Judith says. She asks about my trip to Raleigh next week. I tell her the hotel kitchen installation has been delayed because the ventilation contractor measured from the wrong wall. She says this is what happens when people don't supervise. Ethan laughs, although I'm not sure which of us he thinks she means. He talks about the showroom. A designer from Georgetown may place a large order. Judith says when, not if, and reaches across the corner of the table to squeeze his wrist. I eat 3 carrots. The form in my purse seems to generate heat beside my ankle. You know, Judith says, I was thinking today about names. Ethan's fork stops. She continues cutting her meat. What they represent. What it means to carry one well. Mom. What? We're having a conversation. We were talking about cabinet pulls. And now we're talking about family. I take a sip of wine. Go ahead. Judith's expression softens with pleasure. She thinks I've granted her the floor. When I married Ethan's father, I understood that becoming Mrs. Keller meant something. It wasn't just letters on an envelope. I became part of a history. Ethan leans back. We don't need to do this tonight. I'm complimenting your wife. No, you're loading a gun very slowly. Despite myself, I almost smile. Ethan catches it and gives me a hopeful look, as if humor can return the room to normal. Judith's mouth tightens. Nora knows I admire her independence, but Bell-Keller always sounded temporary to me, like a hotel reservation. I design hotels, I say. Maybe it's branding. Ethan snorts into his wine. Judith doesn't. You don't have to turn everything into a joke. Ethan just compared the conversation to a gun. He worries I'll upset you. Will you? She lifts her glass. I'd like to make a toast. Ethan doesn't lift his. I do. Judith's eyes settle on me over the rim. To new beginnings, to a family finally pulling in the same direction, and to the rightful Mrs. Keller. The words hang there. Somewhere above us, a pipe knocks twice inside the ceiling. I say, which one? Judith's smile turns almost tender. Exactly. Ethan sets his glass down. It's just about the mailbox. There it is. He says it so casually that I have to admire the preparation. Not surprise, not, what mailbox? Just, I place my napkin beside my plate. What about the mailbox? Judith waves one hand. The old plate was cumbersome. My name was cumbersome? It was crowded. Marisol said the holder has room for a certain number of characters. That isn't what I asked. Ethan rubs the back of his neck. Mom's going to receive mail here for a while. Building policy wants a resident name displayed. And mine had to come off? You're gone half the month lately. I was in Richmond for 4 nights. Then Raleigh next week. For 3. Judith sighs. This is the exhausting part, Nora. Every practical decision becomes an indictment. I look at Ethan. Did you authorize it? His eyes flick toward my purse. That tiny movement tells me Marisol warned him this might happen, or he knows exactly what form exists downstairs. He reaches for my hand. I move it to my lap before he can touch me. It was a harmless family correction, he says. The building needed paperwork. Mom needs a stable mailing address while she figures out her next move. You and I are obviously still here. Am I? His face changes. Judith says, please don't be theatrical. I pull the folded form from my purse and smooth it beside my plate. Ethan stares at his own signature. Judith is the first to recover. That language is administrative. Temporarily residing elsewhere? The clerk suggested it, Ethan says. Marisol? I don't remember who. She remembers you. He reaches for the paper, but I put 2 fingers on it. The brass key tag attached to his key ring is lying near his plate. September 14th is engraved across one side. My gift to him on our 6th anniversary, because brass was supposed to be traditional, and Ethan had once complained that anniversaries turned marriage into a scavenger hunt at a craft store. I point to the date on the form. He follows my finger. Where was the supplier emergency? I ask. Nora. Was it in the lobby? Judith folds her napkin with deliberate care. He didn't want to upset you on your anniversary. Signing it was fine. Telling me would have been upsetting. You were leaving the next morning, Ethan says. I knew we'd argue and you needed sleep. That answer hurts more than a clumsy lie would have. It is too polished. He has already explained me to himself. Judith reaches for the wine. You see bad motives everywhere I'm concerned. I didn't see this one. Because it isn't bad. I sold my home. I need somewhere dependable while I make decisions. My son offered me that. My husband offered you my address. Our address, Ethan says. The room goes still. It is the reasonable correction, legally, emotionally, grammatically. It is also the first time I understand that he's been keeping score. I look around the dining room. I chose the pendant light after Ethan rejected 6 others. I found the table at an estate warehouse and refinished it on the balcony one sticky July. Ethan installed the shelves badly, then spent a Sunday fixing them while swearing at a level. Our life is everywhere, which makes it difficult to see where my life ends and his entitlement begins. How long is for a while? I ask. Judith and Ethan look at each other. There's my answer. A few months, he says. Judith says, we don't know. Where are the rest of your things? In storage? Which storage? Why does that matter? Because there's a box in the hall closet and 5 place settings on the table. Judith's chin lifts. You count plates now. I count for a living. Ethan gives a short, exhausted laugh. Can we please finish dinner before we turn this into a federal case? I fold the form again, carefully matching the corners. Of course, I say. Judith looks relieved. Ethan doesn't. I raise my glass. To new arrangements, I say. And September 14th. Ethan goes pale. I look from him to his mother and smile just enough to be polite. Thank you both. Judith studies me, trying to determine whether she has won. Ethan knows better. After dinner, I wash the knife before Judith can put it in the dishwasher. She says modern knives should survive modern appliances. I tell her this one won't. We stand shoulder to shoulder at the sink while Ethan clears plates behind us. It is almost funny how quickly betrayal can become domestic. Judith wraps the leftover roast in foil and labels it Thursday with my masking tape. Ethan takes out the trash. When the apartment door closes behind him, she dries her hands and turns to me. He's under a lot of pressure. Is that what this is about? This is about family making room. There was already a room. You use it as an office. I use the desk as an office. The room has a bed. A narrow bed. It fit you last weekend. She leans against the counter. Her face is tired beneath the powder, and for one confusing second, she looks less like an invader than a woman embarrassed by the dimensions of what she needs. I sold a 3-bedroom house, she says. I know. 41 years in one place. I helped you pack it. You left after 2 hours. I had food poisoning. You always have a reason. I grip the damp dish towel. How much room did Ethan promise you? Her gaze shifts toward the door. That is the first crack. Before I can press it, Ethan returns. Judith immediately asks whether he remembered to put the recycling in the separate bin. Her voice is bright again. At 10, Ethan walks her to a car service downstairs. While he is gone, I open the guest room closet. My project binders have been stacked on the floor. Judith's dresses occupy half the rod. On the top shelf are 2 pharmacy bags, a framed photograph of Ethan and Judith at the showroom opening, and the green ceramic key bowl wrapped in one of my linen napkins. I unwrap it. The crack in the glaze has widened. When Ethan comes back, he finds me sitting on the edge of the guest bed with the bowl in my lap. She didn't mean to damage it, he says. You knew it was in here? She thought the silver dish looked better. That wasn't my question. He closes the door behind him, though there's no one else in the apartment. I was going to tell you. When? After Raleigh. Why after Raleigh? So we could discuss it without you storming off to a job site. I run my thumb along the crack. You filed a form saying I already had. It's boilerplate. You signed it. I sign things all day. For a business that's doing great. He blinks. I hadn't planned the sentence. It came from the look between him and Judith when he mentioned the Georgetown order. What does that mean? He asks. Nothing yet. Nora, Mom sold her house. Her new place fell through. She's scared. So you erased me from a mailbox. Oh, come on. He says it loudly, then lowers his voice. It was a brass strip with letters on it. I hold up the green bowl, and this is clay. The apartment is drywall. Our anniversary is a date. If everything is only what it's made of, you don't have a marriage. You have inventory. His anger fades so quickly, it frightens me. He sits beside me, leaving a careful 6 inches between us. I handled it badly, he says. I can admit that. You handled it secretly. I was trying to solve a problem. Whose? He looks toward the floor. I wait. Finally, he says, "Can we not do this tonight?" I stand and carry the bowl into our bedroom. He follows. "What are you doing?" "Packing for Raleigh. You don't leave until Monday." I know. I take my laptop from the dresser and open the folder containing our refinance documents. The appointment is Friday at 11. The preliminary title paperwork lists me as the current owner and Ethan as the proposed co-owner. He watches from the doorway. Nora. I click the loan officer's email and type 3 sentences. I read them twice before sending. "Please cancel Friday's appointment. We will not be moving forward with the title change or refinance. Kindly confirm that no additional documents will be processed." Ethan's phone chimes on the dresser. He is copied on the email. He stares at the screen, then at me. "You can't make that decision because of a mailbox." I close the laptop. "I didn't," I say. Ethan stared at me as if I had thrown something through a window. "That refinance affects both of us." It would have. We planned it for months. We also planned to live here together. We do live here together. Your form says otherwise. He picked up his phone, put it down, then picked it up again. You're making a permanent financial decision in the middle of an argument. I canceled an appointment. I didn't set fire to the bank. You know what adding me to the title means? I thought I did. His mouth opened, but his phone rang before he could answer. Jason Pierce, loan officer, lit the screen. We both looked at it. "You should get that," I said. He let it ring out. For the first time all evening, I felt something solid beneath my feet. Ethan slept in the guest room, or tried to. Around 2, I heard the bed frame knock the wall, followed by a muffled curse. Judith had been right about the narrow mattress. I lay awake staring at the green bowl on my dresser. I'd placed both halves of the cracked rim together, although they no longer met cleanly. My keys rested inside it. Ethan's were still in the silver leaf by the door. At 6, I found him in the kitchen making coffee. He had changed into his showroom clothes, dark jeans, and a shirt with pearl snaps that Judith said made him look entrepreneurial. He poured a second cup and pushed it toward me. "Jason emailed," he said. I saw. "He says we can reschedule." I saw that too. "You're really doing this. You really did that. We're going in circles. No, you're trying to get back to the spot where I didn't know." He opened the refrigerator, stared inside, and closed it without taking anything. "Mom needs us right now." "Then help her." "I am. With my apartment." His face tightened. "It's my home, too." "Yes. And you treated my place in it like an inconvenience on a form." He leaned both palms on the counter. "What do you want me to say?" The honest answer was long and humiliating. I wanted him to say Judith had proposed removing my name and he had refused. I wanted him to admit he had hated lying to me. I wanted to hear that when he imagined protecting someone from discomfort, I had occurred to him. Instead, I said, "I want Judith's things out of the guest room closet before I leave Monday." "That's not reasonable. She doesn't live here. She may need to. There it is." "No, there's a woman with nowhere settled to go. That's it." She received a great offer for her house and took it before signing a lease. She thought the senior building had a unit. She didn't like the unit. It faced the service alley. It had windows. He gave me a disgusted look. "You can be incredibly cold." I carried my untouched coffee to the bedroom. At 9, Marisol called from downstairs. "I shouldn't have given you the form without explaining the process," she said. "You explained it perfectly." "The manager wants to meet. Your husband called." Of course he had. I took the elevator down with the original brass plate in my coat pocket. I had found it that morning in the back of Ethan's desk drawer, beneath a packet of showroom receipts. He hadn't thrown it away. That might once have comforted me. Marisol sat beside the building manager, Mr. Alvarez, in the small office behind the package shelves. He was a soft-spoken man who wore reading glasses on a cord and became solemn whenever bylaws were involved. Ethan was already there. My husband had brought a folder. "Thank you for coming," Mr. Alvarez said. "There appears to have been a misunderstanding." "No," I said. "There was a false statement." Ethan exhaled through his nose. "Nora." Mr. Alvarez examined the form again. "Mr. Keller states that temporarily residing elsewhere was intended to describe your work travel. I sleep in hotels when I travel. I reside in 6C. "Obviously," Ethan said. "Everyone knows that." Marisol looked at him. "You told me your wife was mostly living near her projects." "I said she was away a lot." "You said she had another place." I turned to him. "It was conversational," he said. "Was my approval conversational too?" He shifted in the plastic chair. "I told you she knew Mom was receiving mail there." That wasn't the question she asked. "Mr." Alvarez removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "The directory will be restored today. Mrs. Bell-Keller, you remain the owner of record. No residency amendment can change that." Ethan's folder suddenly looked much less impressive. I slid my old plate across the desk. "This was removed." "We'll reinstall it," Mr. Alvarez said. "We can add a second line for Ms. Keller while she receives mail if you authorize it." "I don't." Ethan turned in his chair. "So Mom's mail gets returned. She can use a post office box. She's in between homes. Then she is exactly who post office boxes are for." Marisol covered something that might have been a smile with a cough. Mr. Alvarez raised one hand. "There is another issue. Ms. Keller has been issued a temporary building fob." "By whom?" I asked. Ethan said, "I requested it." "When?" "Last week." "Cancel it," I told Mr. Alvarez. Ethan spoke over me. "I'm a resident. I'm allowed to request guest access." Mr. Alvarez put his glasses back on and opened a binder. Nothing good in apartment buildings ever follows the opening of a binder. He read for a moment. "An owner or registered resident may request one temporary household fob. Since Mr. Keller is registered as a resident, because I registered him, that registration remains valid. So he can invite someone to live in a home I own against my wishes." "We're not saying live," Ethan said. "Then how long is the fob valid?" Marisol checked the screen. 90 days. I laughed once. I couldn't help it. Mr. Alvarez looked sympathetic. "We can flag the account so no further directory or access changes occur without the owner's written authorization. But canceling a household fob requested by another registered resident requires his consent, unless there is a documented safety violation." Ethan closed his folder. He had lost the nameplate and kept the key. The brass letters were restored before lunch. I stood in the lobby while the maintenance man tightened the tiny screws. N. Bell-Keller. There was a faint rectangle in the metal where Judith's newer plate had rested. "It'll polish out," he said. "I might leave it." He shrugged. "People leave worse." Upstairs, Ethan was packing Judith's dresses into the cardboard box. I didn't thank him. He didn't speak until the closet rod was empty. I told Mom we need a few days. What did she say? "What do you think?" "I stopped trying to think for your mother around the time she toasted herself." He set a pharmacy bag on top of the dresses. "She says you humiliated her with the building." "She wasn't there. She knows people down there. She's been here 12 days. She talks to people." "That is true." He almost smiled. Then his face collapsed back into fatigue. "Nora, I'm sorry about the form." It was the first time he had used the word. I leaned against the door frame. "Which part?" "All of it." "Why did you put that I lived somewhere else?" The form only had room for 2 primary residents. And you chose? I thought it was temporary. You chose. He sat on the closed box. Mom has put everything into starting over. The sentence felt rehearsed, but not in the way the others had. There was weight under it. What does that mean? She sold her house. She doesn't have her routines. Her friends are spread out. She invested some money with me, and now she feels exposed. I looked at him. How much money? It's not relevant. It became relevant when she put her shoes in my closet. He stood. It's between me and her. Good. Keep it there. I left him with the box. In Raleigh, the ventilation contractor blamed the architect. The architect blamed a column that had existed since 1926, and the hotel manager blamed everyone while eating almonds one at a time from a paper cup. It should have been exhausting. Instead, the clarity of other people's mistakes calmed me. Ductwork was either 6 inches off or it wasn't. A prep sink either cleared the door swing or it didn't. Nobody asked the wall to consider the pipe's intentions. On Tuesday night, Ethan texted a picture of the green bowl repaired with a shiny line of glue. Fixed it. I zoomed in. He had glued the broken piece backward. I started laughing in the hotel bar. The bartender looked over. Sorry, I said. My husband fixed something. She nodded as if that explained everything. I wrote, please don't use it. The adhesive isn't food safe. For keys, Nora. I didn't answer. The next morning, I called the bank and opened an individual checking account. I redirected my paycheck, left enough in our joint account for the scheduled household bills, and downloaded 3 years of statements. The action felt both enormous and embarrassingly basic. A woman in a gray cubicle asked whether I wanted paper checks. I almost told her my entire marriage, then said no. That evening, Ethan called. Did you move your direct deposit? Yes. I got a low balance alert. There's enough for this month's joint expenses. What about the showroom software? What about it? It drafts from that account. I didn't know that. You set it up. I set it up as a temporary payment when your business card was compromised. It's been running that way for 14 months. That doesn't make it a household expense. He was silent. I opened my laptop. The showroom's accounting folder sat exactly where it always had, because for 4 years I had balanced his monthly numbers after dinner. Ethan liked choosing samples, talking to designers, and turning a chunk of cold metal in his hand while describing how it could change a room. He did not like reconciling invoices. How much is in your business account? I asked. We're waiting on receivables. That isn't an amount. I don't need an audit right now. Then move the software draft. You could have warned me. I'm warning you now. The following night, he sent 3 messages asking where I kept the vendor tax forms. I told him. He asked which folder. I told him. He asked what 2023_archive_final2 meant. It meant he had renamed a folder himself. I let him discover that. When I returned Friday afternoon, Judith's box was gone from the hall closet. The silver leaf still held Ethan's keys. The green bowl sat on the console, its crooked repair catching the light. I carried it into the bedroom and set it on the dresser. Ethan was at the showroom. I unpacked, started laundry, and opened the refrigerator. Judith's labeled roast had disappeared. In its place were 6 identical meal prep containers and a bottle of almond creamer. The guest room closet was empty. I sat at the desk and logged into the spreadsheet I maintained for Ethan's business. Expenses exceeded deposits for the 4th month in a row. A transfer for $60,000 had arrived from Judith 6 weeks earlier. Most of it was already gone. I stared at the number until my screen dimmed. The front lock turned. Judith walked in carrying 2 grocery bags and talking over her shoulder to someone in the hall. When she saw me, she stopped. A new brass key hung from her fingers. Behind her, a delivery man lowered 2 suitcases onto my floor. "You're back early," she said. I looked at the key, then at the suitcases. "No," I said. "I'm right on time." Judith recovered first. "Put those in the guest room," she told the delivery man. "No," I said. He froze with one suitcase upright and his hand still on the handle. Judith set her grocery bags on the console, one rolled sideways, spilling lemons across the floor. This man is being paid by the minute. Then don't waste his time. Nora. That room isn't available. It has a bed and an empty closet. Because Ethan packed your things. Her eyes hardened. At your insistence. The delivery man looked toward the elevator as if measuring whether the suitcases were worth whatever came next. I stepped aside. Please take them back downstairs. Judith pulled out her phone. Ethan said I could stay. I didn't. He lives here. I own it. The words tasted ugly. Necessary, but ugly. Judith heard both. She turned to the delivery man. Leave them. Thank you. Ma'am, I need to know. Leave them. He placed the second suitcase beside the first, accepted the money she pressed into his hand, and vanished. I picked up one of the lemons and returned it to the bag. Where did you get the key? My son had it made. Of course he did. He didn't want me depending on that ridiculous electronic fob. The fob I couldn't cancel? Her expression flickered. She knew about the meeting downstairs. I held out my hand. Give me the key. No. Then I'll have the lock changed. And Ethan will give me another. She said it without pleasure. That made it worse. We stood in the entryway with the groceries between us. The green bowl was 30 feet away on my dresser, but I could see the silver leaf under Judith's purse. She had dropped her new key into it like she had always done so. I'm staying until Ethan gets home, she said. You already planned to. I mean in the living room. I won't enter your precious guest room. Thank you for respecting the border. You make yourself very difficult to help. I didn't know this was help. She lifted her grocery bags and carried them to the kitchen. You rarely do. I took my suitcase into the bedroom and locked the door. For an hour, she cooked. I heard cupboards opening, the scrape of a pot across the stove, and the low murmur of a news program. She did not knock. Ethan arrived at 6:20. Their voices stayed quiet at first. Then his steps came down the hall. Nora? I opened the bedroom door. He looked past me at my unpacked suitcase. Mom called. I assumed. She can't go back to the hotel. She was at a hotel? For 3 nights. What happened to her senior building? She withdrew the application. Because of the service alley. Because she didn't feel safe. Judith called from the kitchen. You don't need to discuss my private decisions through a door. I walked out. Then join us. She was spooning soup into 3 bowls. The ease of it was stunning. Ethan lowered his voice. We need to make a short-term plan. You made one. Mom will use the guest room for 2 weeks. That gives us time to find something. Judith set down the ladle. I'm not signing a lease under threat. There are furnished rentals, I said, which cost money. You sold a house? Her hand stopped above the pot. Ethan said, that money is committed. I saw the transfer. He stared at me. You went through my business account? I opened the spreadsheet I've maintained for 4 years. That doesn't give you permission to inspect a private transfer. You draft business expenses from our joint account. That was one software subscription. Then why did you need $60,000? Judith sat down at the table without touching her soup. Ethan walked into the kitchen and turned off the burner, although it was already off. This isn't the time. When is? After we add you to the title? His shoulders rose. There it was. The refinance had not been a milestone to him. It had been part of a rescue. Judith looked from him to me. That money was for expansion. Some of it was, Ethan said. Some? Inventory costs more than projected. How much went to old bills? I asked. He snapped. I'm not discussing my company like I'm being deposed. Judith's face had gone very still. I asked you whether everything was current. And I told you we were positioned for growth. That wasn't what I asked. For one satisfying second, his mother sounded exactly like me. Then she looked at the suitcases and seemed to remember which alliance had a bed attached to it. I trusted my son, she said. That does not make me foolish. No, I said. It makes you invested. Ethan struck the counter with his open palm. The sound startled all three of us. I am trying to keep a business alive and make sure my mother has somewhere to sleep. Could either of you stop treating that like a moral defect? I looked at the soup bowls. You've made promises with other people's things. He pointed toward the hallway. It's a room, Nora. It's always small when it belongs to me. He flinched. I walked back to the bedroom, took the green bowl from the dresser, and carried it to the console. I removed Ethan's keys from the silver leaf and set them in the bowl. Then I placed Judith's brass key beside them. Your keys stay here while you're inside, I told her. You don't enter my bedroom or office desk. 2 weeks. On the 15th day, the suitcases leave. Ethan started to speak. I'm not agreeing that she lives here. I'm choosing not to throw luggage into the hall. Judith looked offended by the distinction, which was why I needed it. She stayed. By the third morning, my home had acquired another nervous system. Judith woke at 5:45, ran water until it was hot enough for tea, and turned the thermostat up 3 degrees. She replaced the toilet paper before the roll was empty and lined the dying rolls along the bathroom counter like evidence of waste. She watched financial news at a volume that traveled cleanly through walls. Ethan began leaving early for the showroom. He kissed Judith on the head before he went. He stopped trying to kiss me. I put a lock on the file drawer in my desk and kept the key on my ring. Judith called it melodramatic. That afternoon, I found her holding a ruler against the living room wall. What are you doing? Seeing whether my sideboard would fit. No, it's in storage, costing me a fortune. It can keep costing you. She lowered the ruler. You know, I defended you when Ethan's father was alive. From what? He thought you were too attached to your work. I met you after he died. That doesn't mean we didn't discuss you. Her lies were never quite lies. That was one of her talents. I took the ruler from her and returned it to the kitchen drawer. On Monday, the storage company charged our joint account. I called Ethan. Why are we paying for Judith's storage? Mom reimburses us. She didn't last month. She invested $60,000 in my company. That is not reimbursement. She doesn't have an account set up for automatic payment. She has a bank account. Nora, it's $280. I canceled the authorization. The next morning, Judith found the notice in her email while I was making toast. You cut off my storage. I stopped paying for it. Without telling me. I'm telling you now. Her chair scraped back. My entire life is in that unit. Then you should probably keep the bill current. Ethan came in wearing one shoe. What happened? Your wife is holding my belongings hostage. I do not own the storage company. You canceled the payment from my household account. He looked at me. Can we have 1 week without another ambush? You have 3 days left in your 2 weeks. Judith's face changed. You were serious. That has been the central misunderstanding. After they left, I boxed the showroom's financial records. I labeled each year, printed a summary of recurring expenses, and attached a list of due dates. I changed nothing and deleted nothing. The orderliness of the boxes made me feel crueler than shouting would have. At noon, Leah came to collect them. She was Ethan's cousin and the showroom's only full-time employee, a compact woman with silver hoops and the permanent squint of someone evaluating a price tag. We had always liked each other in cautious doses. She looked at the boxes. He said you were withholding the books. Here are the books. He said you locked him out of the accounting system. I sent him the login reset link twice. Leah sighed. He's spinning. Yes, he does that when he thinks the truth lacks charm. I handed her the cash flow summary. She scanned the first page. This is bad. It's accurate. Is that why you canceled the refinance? He told you? He told a cabinet installer who told me while asking if his check would clear. I leaned against the desk. I canceled because Ethan filed a form saying I didn't live here and tried to move his mother in before adding himself to my title. Leah's squint disappeared. He left out some nouns, she said. I assumed. She turned another page. Judith thinks her money bought the new display line. It paid vendors who were already overdue. Leah closed the report. Does she know? She knows there were old bills. I don't think she knows how many. She'll blame you. She already does. No, I mean, for knowing. Leah carried the top box to the door. I'm not getting between family. I didn't ask you to. I know. That somehow makes it worse. She returned for the second box and paused beside the green bowl. Did Ethan fix that? He believes he did. He fixed my bathroom shelf once. It leans upward. Upward sounds advanced. She laughed, then looked embarrassed by it. At the door, she said, I'll make sure the records stay intact. It wasn't loyalty, but it was the first thing anyone connected to Ethan had offered me that didn't require access in return. That afternoon, I met with Andrea Ross, a divorce mediator recommended by a hotel owner whose marriage had ended without either spouse throwing furniture from a balcony. Andrea's office had beige chairs, weak coffee, and no inspirational signs. I trusted her immediately. She reviewed the property documents, our bank statements, and the canceled refinance application. The apartment was yours before the marriage, she said. That matters. It doesn't make the last 7 years disappear. I'm not asking it to. Ethan may have a claim to a portion of the appreciation during the marriage, depending on contributions and how you resolve other assets. He thinks he owns half. People think many things before numbers arrive. Can I make his mother leave? You can tell her to leave. Your difficulty is that your spouse is inviting her to remain in his residence. If this becomes contested, you could request exclusive use of the home during separation, but it's not a switch I flipped today. What if I leave? For a hotel? For peace? She folded her hands. A few nights is one thing. Moving out can alter the practical balance even when it doesn't erase ownership. Is that what you want? No. Then don't let discomfort make your strategy for you. The word strategy made me feel as though I had entered a war I had not agreed to fight. What if I want to keep the apartment? We determine the marital portion, negotiate his share, and see whether you can refinance on your income alone. I was already paying the mortgage. Paying it and qualifying a loan are related, not identical. The estimate she gave me tightened my throat. Keeping 6C was possible. It would also consume the savings I had spent years building and leave me with a larger monthly payment. Andrea watched me absorb it. You don't have to decide today. I think Ethan decided for me on September 14th. No, he created your problem. You still decide your answer. When I returned home, Judith's suitcases were packed in the hall. For one foolish moment, I thought she was leaving. Then I saw my project binders boxed beside them. Ethan stood at the guest room desk, unscrewing the monitor from its arm. What are you doing? Making the room usable for Mom. Her 2 weeks end tomorrow. She has nowhere to go. That is not true. She can't afford a decent rental while her money is tied up in the showroom. I looked at Judith. And you're comfortable with that? My son will repay me. With what? Ethan dropped the screwdriver onto the desk. Enough. He picked up a thick envelope and held it toward me. A lawyer's name was printed in the corner. I've documented every mortgage payment, utility bill, repair, and improvement I contributed to, he said. If you force Mom out, I'll file for my full share of this home. I took the envelope. Judith stood beside her suitcases, one hand resting on the brass handle of the larger one. Ethan's voice softened. You don't get to erase me either. I looked down at the envelope, then at the room he had already begun dismantling. No, I said. I'm going to account for you. He expected the envelope to frighten me into silence. It frightened me into a filing cabinet. I spent the next 2 nights sorting statements, invoices, repair receipts, and mortgage records across the bedroom floor. Ethan's letter counted every dollar he had spent in 6C, including a faucet he installed incorrectly and replaced 6 months later. He valued his labor painting the living room at $40 an hour. He had included dinner from the night we finished. I gave everything to Andrea. She called the letter aspirational. That's polite, I said. It means his lawyer wrote down what he asked for. Does the pizza count as an improvement? Was it structural pizza? It had sausage. We'll keep it in reserve. The joke helped for 11 seconds. Ethan moved my project binders into our bedroom despite my telling him not to touch them. Judith remained in the guest room. I began sleeping with my work bag between the bed and wall because there was nowhere else to put it. We communicated through notes and texts while standing in the same apartment. Please replace almond creamer. No. Building maintenance coming at 2. I'll be at work. Mom needs quiet Thursday morning. Then Mom should find some. Judith stopped cooking for me but continued using my cookware. Ethan stopped putting his keys in the green bowl. He carried them in his pocket, so I heard them everywhere. Down the hall, across the kitchen, behind the guest room door. A little metal announcement that he could still enter. Andrea filed the separation paperwork and requested a formal occupancy arrangement. Nothing moved quickly. Ethan's lawyer objected to exclusive use of the apartment and described Judith as a temporary dependent guest, which made her sound like an exchange student with a bad knee. The building could not remove her while Ethan kept inviting her in. Mr. Alvarez added a note requiring my written approval for future access changes, but the brass key remained beyond his binder's jurisdiction. I did not leave. Instead, I stopped making the apartment comfortable for 3 people. I bought groceries for myself and labeled nothing. I removed my credit card from the meal delivery account. I stopped replacing the expensive coffee Ethan liked and the sparkling water Judith drank because plain water made her feel punished. When the hallway bulb burned out, I left it until Ethan submitted a maintenance request himself. 3 days later, he stood at the kitchen counter with his laptop open. Where's the building portal? Online. I know it's online. Then this is going well. He shut the laptop. Do you enjoy this? No. You seem to. I used to do these things before you noticed they existed. Now you notice. Judith entered wearing her robe. The thermostat is locked. It has a passcode, which is a lock. The heat was set to 78. I was cold. You opened the bedroom window. Fresh air is healthy. For the electric company. She looked at Ethan. Say something. He rubbed his eyes. Mom, put on a sweater. Her face registered the first betrayal of the day. At the showroom, the larger ones were arriving. Leah called me on a Thursday afternoon. Do you know anything about the Georgetown order? Only that it was going to transform our lives. It transformed into a request for samples. That sounds less powerful. Ethan ordered $14,000 in inventory around it. I closed the equipment schedule on my screen. Did the customer sign anything? No. Then I'm sorry. She was quiet. I found 3 vendor notices in his desk, she said. He told me the payments had crossed in the mail. Nothing has crossed in the mail since 2009. He's not paying himself, but he's still taking draws for household expenses. He hasn't deposited anything into our joint account this month. Then I don't know which household. Neither of us said Judith's name. Are you asking me to do something? I said. No, I'm trying to decide whether I can keep working there. That's your decision. You really aren't going to tell me what to do. I have retired from unpaid management. Could have made a plaque. I'm busy redesigning my mailbox. She laughed, but her breath caught at the end. Leah resigned the following week after Ethan asked her to delay her paycheck. She gave him 10 business days to transfer the customer records and open orders. She sent me one message afterward. I left everything intact. I wrote back, "Thank you." Ethan came home carrying one of the record boxes I had packed. He dropped it hard enough to rattle the dishes. Did you tell Leah to quit? No. She called you. She asked what I knew about Georgetown. That was confidential. She works there. She worked there. Judith came out of the guest room. What happened? Nora has been discussing my business with my employee. Former employee, I said. Ethan shoved the cash flow summary across the counter. You gave her this. I gave her the books you sent her to collect. You made the worst possible version of everything. I added numbers. You highlighted them. The overdue accounts were yellow before your mother used up all the ink. Judith ignored that. Leah left? Ethan looked at her, and I watched him make a decision. She overreacted to a short delay. Is the Georgetown order confirmed? It's progressing. That means no, she said. He gathered the papers. I don't need both of you interrogating me. Then answer one of us, Judith said. He walked out. The front door slammed. His keys struck the lock on the other side, followed by the uneven thud of him kicking the baseboard. Judith stared at the door. How much is left? She asked. You need to ask him. I asked you. I don't run the account anymore. But you saw it. Several weeks ago. How much? I could have told her. I had the exact figure burned into my mind. Instead, I said, Your agreement is with Ethan. Her lips thinned. You're enjoying watching me discover this. No, I'm refusing to make it easier. That's the same thing in a prettier dress. She returned to the guest room. A minute later, I heard her lock the door. Andrea and Ethan's lawyer spent 6 weeks arguing through email before everyone agreed to mediation. In that time, Judith stopped measuring walls. She toured rentals, disliked them, toured them again, and began bringing home brochures she left face down on the table. Ethan slept at the showroom twice, then admitted the landlord had restricted his access after 11 because he was behind on rent. The apartment became quieter as his business became louder. Collection calls arrived during dinner. Vendors called Judith when Ethan stopped answering because he had listed her as an investor. She started keeping a notebook beside her soup bowl. One evening, she said, He claims your canceled refinance caused this. It didn't help. She looked surprised by my answer. If I'd completed it, I said, the money might have delayed things. And he could have paid me. Maybe. You don't think he would have? I think Ethan believes every future version of himself will be more responsible than the present one. Judith closed her notebook. That sounds like something his father used to say. She waited, perhaps expecting sympathy to open a path between us. I rinsed my bowl. The night before mediation, Ethan knocked on the bedroom door. He had lost weight. Without the showroom shirt and practiced smile, he looked like the man who had once spent a Sunday fixing crooked shelves because I was too stubborn to admit they bothered me. Can we talk without Andrea? He asked. She isn't here. You know what I mean. I let him in but stayed standing. He sat on the edge of the bed. His eyes found the green bowl on my dresser, the glued fragment still backward. I can get Mom out by the end of the month, he said. That isn't an offer anymore. If you stop the separation, no. If I sign something saying she can't come back, no. If we sell the showroom inventory, I can catch up. We can go back to Jason, finish the refinance, and then add you to the title, as we planned. Before or after your mother gets her money, he looked at his hands. That was the point, I said. It wasn't the only point. Was it the reason you pushed the appointment? I wanted a cushion. You wanted my home equity. For us. You signed my address away for her and wanted my equity for you. Where was I in us? He stood abruptly. I loved you. The past tense entered before either of us was ready. He heard it and closed his eyes. I do love you, he corrected. I looked at him and believed him. That was the saddest part. Ethan loved me. He simply loved his own relief more. Every time protecting me required an uncomfortable conversation, he traded a piece of me for peace and called the trade temporary. I know, I said. He waited for that to change something. It didn't. Mediation took place around a long table in Andrea's office. Ethan sat with his lawyer. I sat with Andrea. Judith was not formally part of the divorce, but she arrived carrying a document folder because the proposal involved her investment and future housing. She wore the brick-colored lipstick from the dinner. Ethan's proposal was exactly the life he had described in my bedroom, enlarged to legal size. He would remain in 6C, Judith would occupy the guest room, and the apartment would be refinanced into his name within 18 months. My equity would be paid when the showroom recovered or the property was sold. Andrea read the last page twice. "You currently do not qualify to refinance," she said. "My circumstances are temporary." And Ms. Bell-Keller would assume that risk for 18 months. Ethan's lawyer said, "Mr. Keller has marital rights in the property." "No one disputes a negotiated marital interest," Andrea said. "That is different from financing his continued occupancy." Judith opened her folder. "I can demonstrate that the Keller family has already contributed substantially." Ethan turned toward her. "Mom, we don't need," I was asked to provide records. "You weren't asked. You told me to bring proof." He looked genuinely confused. Judith had obeyed the version of him that made her most important. She slid bank statements and printed emails across the table. "My $60,000 transfer stabilized Ethan's company," she said. "It was made with the understanding that I would have permanent housing and that the business would reimburse me after expansion." Andrea lifted the first email. "This housing promise is from Mr. Keller?" "My son." Ethan reached for it. "That wasn't a contract." Judith pulled it away. "It was a promise." The transfer had cleared on September 14th at 9:12 in the morning. At 3:47 that afternoon, Ethan had submitted the mailbox form. At 6, he had texted me that the supplier emergency was getting worse and I should order dinner without him. I removed the folded building form from my file and placed it beside Judith's statement. Then I took the brass anniversary key tag from my purse. I had removed it from Ethan's ring after he set his keys in the green bowl. He had never asked where it went. I laid it between the two dates, September 14th, 3 objects, 1 day, and 7 years of marriage, reduced to the order in which my husband had solved his problems. Judith read the form. "Temporarily residing elsewhere," she said. Her voice was low. Ethan looked at me. "We've been through this." "No," I said. "We've been living inside it." He tapped his mother's email. I was trying to reassure her after she invested. "You sold her a permanent room you didn't own." I knew we were refinancing. "You sold her my agreement before you had it." Judith's head turned toward him. "You said Nora wanted the arrangement." I said she understood family obligations. "You said the title transfer was already in process." It was. Andrea said a preliminary appointment had been scheduled. No transfer documents were signed. Judith sat back. She did not apologize to me. I did not expect her to. Her injury was not that I had been betrayed. It was that she had discovered she was not the favored partner in Ethan's plan. We had both been used as answers to the other woman. Andrea placed my settlement offer on the table. It accounted for documented marital appreciation, Ethan's verified household contributions, the joint balances, and the remaining business expense charged to our account. I would refinance in my name alone and pay him an immediate cash settlement after closing. In return, he would waive further claims to 6C, return all keys, and move out by the agreed date. His lawyer studied the number. "This is below our demand." "It is," Andrea said. Ethan looked at me. "You know I can't start over with that." "You can continue disputing it," I said. "Then we document every contribution, every withdrawal, every business charge, and every improvement. It will take months." His lawyer leaned close and whispered to him. Judith clutched her bank records. "What happens to my money?" Ethan didn't answer. She turned on him with a sharpness I had only ever seen directed at me. "You told me this apartment would protect it." "That was before Nora decided to destroy everything." "No," Judith said. "This was before she found the paper." Silence settled across the table. There was no alliance in her words. Only accuracy. Ethan looked down at his signed form. He accepted my offer after a private conference with his lawyer. The showroom landlord wanted payment. Vendors wanted payment. Waiting for a larger, uncertain settlement would cost him money he no longer had. The agreement did not feel like victory when I signed it. My hand shook. The new mortgage would be heavier, my savings thinner, and the apartment quieter in ways I could not yet imagine. Judith rented a one-bedroom 8 blocks away. Her sideboard did not fit. Ethan closed the showroom and sold the remaining inventory in lots. He moved into a furnished apartment near Leah's new job, though she told me once, dryly, that geography was not forgiveness. On his last morning in 6C, Ethan set his keys in the green bowl. The crooked seam gleamed between them. "I'm sorry I fixed it wrong," he said. I touched the reversed piece. "It holds keys." He understood. After he left, I carried the silver leaf to the donation box and took the green bowl back to my dresser. Then I went downstairs with a new brass plate. Marisol watched while I slid it into the mailbox holder. Nora Bell. The letters fit without crowding. I held the anniversary tag for a moment, feeling the engraved date press into my palm. Then I placed it inside the empty mailbox and closed the little metal door. My own key turned cleanly in the lock. I took it home.